Council shake-up sees elections delayed in 9 areas by Kate Wannell on the BBC. And by council shake-up, what she really means is delaying tactics from an authoritarian government that knows it's about as popular as a bastard at a family reunion. Right then, the BBC's reporting this story as if it's just, bog standard politics. Every now and then we do a reorg and we reshuffle a few seats, and unfortunately we've got to delay the elections. Yeah, totally reasonable. However, obviously it's not true, primarily because it's being reported by the BBC, which we all know, when it comes to UK politics, is not even remotely impartial. We've all heard the stories about champagne bottles being littering the office when Tony Blair won, and it's never changed. This is the primary reason why I've led a personal crusade to have the BBC completely abolished. In fact, not just that. My tagline has always been bulldoze broadcasting house, preferably while Match of the Day is going out live, and then salt the earth, build a car park on it, and pretend the BBC never existed, because that's how embarrassing it is at this point. And it's just came out this week that they're also getting funded by the US government, which is quite the revelation. However, I won't segue into that just yet. Let's talk about why they've delayed the council elections, shall we? So according to the BBC, the elections in East Sussex, West Sussex, Essex, Thurrock, Hampshire, the Isle of Wight, Norfolk, Suffolk and Surrey will be delayed for a year to allow major reorganisations to take place, Local Government Secretary Angela Rayner has said. Yeah, the Ginger Growler's doing a great job as Local Government Secretary, isn't she? Cancelling local elections. Very good, yeah. Get appointed as a secretary, do the exact opposite of what the secretary's supposed to do. Still, it's on brand for Labour, isn't it? But very Orwellian. This is like Chairman Mao being appointed Secretary for Feeding the People, shortly before he starved 50 million of them to death. Speaking to Parliament, Rayner said the postponement would pave the way for a generational power shift from Whitehall to the Town Hall. And she said holding elections for authorities that were due to be scrapped anyway would be an expensive and irresponsible waste of money. Yeah, 2 things. First of all, you've got a gift for spending money. You've got a talent for it. Drunk sailors on shore leave have got nothing on Angela Rayner's government. And second of all, as I said yesterday, every accusation is a confession from these people. The reason she said it was paving the way for a generational shift from Whitehall to the Town Hall is because it's paving the way for local elections and local councils to have no power at all, whilst 2 Tia Kia and the Ginger Growler stomp all over your rights. I think that's obvious to anyone, and I've brought the receipts because have you seen the polls lately? We have to go to the Daily Express for this one because the BBC don't want to talk about it, do they? Obviously they're doing as they're told. Labour and Tory vote collapses in Nigel Farage's seaside seat as reforms surge. This is hot off the press today. Mr Farage represents the seaside town of Clacton, where support for the 2 main parties seems to have slumped. The party's candidate, Amy Kateka, won a council by-election in Bentleys and Freighting, tendering this week. Yesterday, Clacton MPs hailed the result as a big win for reform. Mr Farage's party attained 45.3% of the vote. The Lib Dems came second, gaining 16.8% to reach 34.4% of ballots. The Conservatives tanked and only got 17.1%, a 31.4% decrease, and Labour acquired 3.2%, down 7.7%. Look at that. Look at that damning statistic. Labour, 3%. I want to know who the 3% is. Who was that? Starmer's mum, dad, granddad, and his wife and kids all voted. Where are they getting 3% from? But it's a damning statistic, which they thoroughly deserve. Reform's chairman Zia Youssef announced on Friday that of the 6 recent council by-elections, Reform won 2 and came second in 2. It comes as Mr Farage's party has been ranked higher than Labour and the Tories in national polls. Results released by Find Out Now on Wednesday suggested that Reform UK was on 29%, Labour 25% and the Tories on 18%. And as Mr Moses says in the chat, the nation would vote Reform UK tomorrow in the general election based on Brits First. Both Labour and the pretend Conservatives know this, hence why they both conspired to cancel local council elections. They now run from democratic accountability. Yes, indeed they do, Moses. And just as the Americans would have said back in the day, no taxation without representation, angry Brits are now cancelling their council tax payments after elections were postponed, saying not paying. Ratepayers ignore bills as they protest against the Deputy PM's decision to delay votes in 9 areas. And the cherry on top, Lee Anderson's hailed a seismic moment as the first Labour councillor defects to reform. So what do you make of all that then? I believe this has been something that anyone who's listened to popular conservative and libertarian YouTube channels from the UK, we've been saying this for years. I was saying this probably 3 years ago when I first realised that the albino jellyfish Boris Johnson, who I'm ashamed to admit I did vote for back in the day, when we realised that he was a rice pudding-faced, sloshing portaloo of a man with the moral fibre of Joseph Fritzl on a bad day. When I realised that, I said, I don't care if it puts Labour in Downing Street. I'm sure you can all remember this. I don't care if it puts Labour in Downing Street. Here's what's going to happen. We're not going to vote for the Conservatives. They're going to collapse. This will allow Labour to rise to power with about 30% of the vote. We'll have to endure 4 or 5 years of Labour tyranny, and then, hopefully, the Conservative Party dies forever and everybody gets with the programme. It has turned out exactly as we all expected, almost to the letter. And trust me, these 20% of delusional Conservative voters, the normies, they will come to the polls eventually. As I told you lot, because the mainstream media, it's been stitched up by the middle for Labour and the Conservatives, the not conservative Conservatives. That's why Labour won. Not enough people were willing to abandon the not conservative Conservatives, but they'll get the memo. Eventually, Joe Normie is going to wake up and Reform will win the next general election by a landslide. If you combine the Conservative voters, the Reform voters, and the old left, the actual interested in the working class, patriotic left, they will all galvanise behind an alternative to the Uniparty that's been running the UK for the last 40 years. It's written in the stars. I'll be home next month. I don't expect to meet a single person who's actually sticking with the Conservatives, who pays attention to what's going on. And as for Labour voters, at this point they are as rare as rockin' horse shit, as far as I can see, in working class shires up and down the country. The only people who vote Labour are the globalist elites. They work for the BBC and they work for The Guardian, and they're the anywheres, you know, they studied in Melbourne, and then I spent a couple of years in Copenhagen, and then I went to New England, it was marvellous, and then I spent a year in Johannesburg, and then I went to Barcelona, it's glorious, there's a beach right there in the city, marvellous, tapas, love that, and then I went to Edinburgh for a little bit. They're the people who vote for the Labour Party. You never meet them in person. The only time I've seen one of late was sitting outside Marks and Spencer's for a protest, you know, about Brexit or something. These people are just a meme. Reform has grassroots support, the Conservatives aren't conservative, and it's finally sinking in. All right? So there is a silver lining on the clouds. And thank the Lord for the Orange Oracle, the God Emperor of mankind. His policies in the last month have been superb. Absolutely bang on. I'm almost getting tired of winning, and that is going to help populist candidates all across the Western world. For the first time in years, I can actually see some sunlight piercing through the mist, and all thanks to the orange one. Dare I say, the Americans will once again liberate Europe, but this time not from a one-bollocked Austrian, but from the authoritarian statists that have been running that continent with an iron fist for the last 35 years. All right? But that's just my opinion. If you disagree and you love Guy Verhofstadt and you're a massive fan of Ursula von der Scheiße and Macron, the slimy sparrow-boned rent boy, if you're a big fan of all them, please let me know in the comments, because I love reading commie gibberish. All right? I'll be doing a live stream tomorrow at 7 p.m. UK. Be there or be square. All right? I'll see you then. Toodle pip. Cheers.